Step one, create your GitLab project, invite me to it so that I can then invite you back to my project. Just as we did with the Java class, I have one which is basically going to have some code that I'll put in. As the assignments progress, I will be putting solutions in and pushing those. The assignments, at least the first couple of assignments for the computer, are very straightforward in the sense that I kind of walk you through every step of it. So I don't anticipate anybody getting any of the first couple ones, quote, wrong. The only possible points of contention will probably have to do with some sort of somewhat niggling issues having to do with the access for the variables. That's usually one of the things that gets forgotten. So remember, parameters are declared in SimKit as private, but state variables, I'm going to let you, well, in fact, not only let you, but require them to be protected. And there's a reason for that. What the reason is isn't important at this point, but there is a reason for that. So in the Java class, instance variables were all required to be private. And I was alluding to the fact that that might be loosened, and here's the loosening. The loosening is that, again, parameters in a SimKit component are defined to be private access, but state variables have protected access. And as I said, there's a reason for that, and that reason will hopefully become somewhat apparent as the course goes on. So create your GitLab project. Be sure to invite me to that. Then create a new NetBeans project for this class. And then the next step on that is to install, to configure the SimKit library. I'll tell you what, I'll share my screen and I'll just kind of show you where that is. If in the lessons, again, in the lessons, I've kind of broken out into the different components. For the lectures, we're now into event graph modeling. We're going to spend quite a bit of time there because that's one of the main takeaways for the course. But the programming assignments are going to be mostly listed here. So as preparation, I basically kind of list everything that I was saying. Here's a link to the video. And let's see, I see there have been a couple of views, so when you get a chance to take a look at that. Okay, the SimKit library files, again, this is something that we didn't have a chance to get to in the Java course, but what NetBeans and Java provide is the ability to, in a fairly straightforward manner, have third-party libraries which then extend the capabilities, and that's what we want here. The library files in this case can be downloaded. If you sort of click on the link, we get this zip file here. Tell you what, let me, I'm going to share the whole screen just to. Okay, so we download that. Okay, this is going to be a little bit different depending on whether you're on Windows or on a Mac. I'm back on my Mac, as you can see. In the video, I actually did it on Windows because some of you are on that, but oh, here I can just say open it. It's a fairly small download, and what comes up is a bunch of stuff. The most important parts are these three files here. So let me let's see, I'll close these out and all right, so I'll just to give you yet another thing, I'll walk you through kind of what's going on with that. So when you create a new project, and you only did this once last quarter, so you may not remember exactly how it goes. You just need to make sure that you choose Java with Ant and choose a Java class library. If you choose Java application, that's not the worst thing in the world. If you choose these other ones, that could be problematic. So class library, I'll just kind of put it in the temporary directory here. And again, call it MV3302. And then the other point right here is make sure that this is checked. Use dedicated folder for storing libraries. The reason that needs to be checked is because that if you make sure that's checked, then NetBeans will have it will enable NetBeans's capabilities for accessing those libraries. If it's not checked, I'm not quite sure how to recover from that. So I'm sure there's a way, but I'm not familiar with it. Just make sure that that's checked. And if you get through and you forget to check it, probably the best thing is, since you really haven't done anything yet, just delete the whole thing and start over. So again, so we finish. And now we have an empty project. In order to create the library, and click at the very top of the project, choose properties, then select libraries, and then you want to add a class path library. So click on the little plus here. They should have made the, like if you click on this, we're just sort of adding a module. We don't want a module path, we want a class path. So it would have been nice if they'd, I don't know, had like a little set of dots here or something like that. So we don't want to add a project. You don't want to just add a jar or a folder. We actually want to add a library. Okay, so since the library doesn't want to exist yet, we want to create it, and please call yours capital SimKit. No capital K, that's why, just sort of silliness. Okay. So that brings up this. We're going to now connect the 3 jar files that we had. So the most important one is the class path one, and we click add jar, and then really you go to where it was downloaded. In mine, it is in the downloads directory, and somewhere here I look for SimKit. Okay, there it is. And I want to choose the SimKit jar file. I click add. Am I sure? I'm absolutely sure. Okay, and then just double confirm that the library class path is SimKit/SimKit jar. And as you can see, we can actually add more libraries. At any point, if you want to add a third library, and there are a bazillion third libraries to add to your project, this is the only one we will need for this class. But if you do any more Java development, then many times you're going to want to have an extra library. For example, if you want to connect to a database like MySQL, SQLite, or even something like Access or Oracle, there are libraries that have the drivers that allow you to connect to those databases. Again, we won't be doing that here. Now, just for convenience, you can actually also add the sources. The SimKit is an open source project, and the sources are provided in this zip file here and so it doesn't hurt to just have that. And then finally, the Java doc. This is probably the more useful one. We add the zip there, and that's SimKit doc zip. We do all that. We have to OK, add library, and then make sure it's there, and we OK that. Then to create a Java package. Again, most of what we do is going to be in the upper level, top level package MV3302. Make sure these are lowercase. Finish that. And now to test whether or not we have correctly configured the package, we can test it out to see whether or not it can find the main the class for that. So here's just to kind of start what we're going to be doing here. It's going to be an arrival process. So we define a class called arrival process in the MV3302 package. Okay, so there it is. And what are all of our components are going to extend something called sim entity base. Okay, so again, we get the red squiggly, cannot find symbol. So what do we do on that? We can either click here or we can fix imports. And as you can see, we've fixed the import. It found simkit.simEntityBase. And now there are no red squigglies. So what that says is that the library, the SimKit library, has been correctly configured and added to the class path. Just as another check, if we expand the libraries item over here, we can see that in addition to our JDK, we also have the SimKit jar file. And if you open that up, we see that there are a whole bunch of different packages for that. We'll only be using a handful of that. SimKit is it's fairly small, but it's also fairly extensive. In this class, we're actually only going to be covering some of its capabilities. It actually has quite a bit more abilities than we're going to be covering. We're just going to be covering the basics for this. Now, so at this point we can.
Sir, quick
question.
Quick question. Yeah, so I have the JDK 11 library actually in there, but when I right click and try and import the sim entity base, it doesn't work.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Can you share your screen so I can take a look at it?
Kind of, yeah. I don't know if you.
It's a little blurry. Can you share your screen in Zoom?
No, it's on the other. It's on the other computer. Like I'm not running on my laptop. I have to run it on my desktop.
Oh.
So I'll have to figure out a way to see what's up.
Well, from what I could sort of see, it looked like it hadn't. You hadn't added the. It looked like SimKit wasn't there, so you hadn't added it as a library. So if you right click here, let me share my screen again. Okay, so if you right click on your project and go all the way down to properties and then click libraries, do you see SimKit under class path?
It must not have saved. I went through the steps. It just, I guess it didn't.
Yeah, if you don't see that, then just you'll have to just sort of do it again. Sort of click the add library. And then either if you don't see SimKit here, if you see SimKit here, select it and say add library, and then make sure you okay it. The part of the problem, I think this is actually kind of a user interface thing. What NetBeans did was it had like 3 sets of pop-up dialogues, and you have to okay each one. If you accidentally cancel any of them, then it skips it. It says, okay, the user changed their mind. So,
yeah,
so
that was it.
Yeah.
I had I had backed out of one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was just sitting there waiting to hit okay. So.
Okay, but yeah, no, thanks for, because that's an easy thing to go wrong. It's actually a user interface issue where on the one hand, it's a good thing to kind of have these modal dialogues that pop up, and so you can do things. We did a little bit of that in the Java class. On the other hand, if you have too many of them, it's just way too easy to do what you did. That is accidentally back out of something before you've okayed every single one. And so if you have to okay like 3, 4, 5 things just to make something work, then that's not the best way to implement something. I'm not sure what the alternative is, but again, just something to be aware of. But yeah, thanks for bringing up that up. That's why this is a good test here. And again, all we're doing, and in fact, once you get this working, then you can kind of proceed with the assignment. But if you don't get this working, then there's really no hope for that. So, okay, so and since it's probably been a few months since you did this. Okay, to set it up with Git, you right-click on your project again at the top of the project, and you go to versioning. And as you can see, there are actually 3 different versioning possibilities: Mercurial, which is actually kind of a cool one; Subversion, which is kind of an older one. It's the one that I used before I finally converted to Git. But we want to versioning initialize Git repository right here. And when we do that now at this point, we want to be coherent with our NetBeans, with our GitLab. So there, what you want to do is you want to go to GitLab, and in this case, I've already created this project. And again, you will get access to this once you create your GitLab project and invite me. But for clone, again, the first thing is, it says clone, but we're actually going to pull it. So you click clone. There are 2 options. If you know how to work Secure Shell and have uploaded a public key to GitLab, I'm not going to show you how to do that, but that's actually a more convenient way to interact, because here, if we do it with HTTPS, whenever you'll be logging on with your NPS credentials, and if your password changes, and all of a sudden you have to worry about it on your NetBeans. But anyway, just sort of copy that, then go back to your project, and then do a remote pull. And then what you want to do is paste in your project, and yours should look, first of all, should have your name here, and it should not have this extra thing. What I did was I named mine SP21 for Spring 21, just to distinguish it, so that if you clone mine, then it should be a little more easy to tell mine from yours. So you want to enter your NPS credentials here to save all that typing. If you're comfortable enough with it, you can click Save Password. And then we want to go next. And it says incorrect credentials. All right, so I fat fingered my. Those are. All right, took me a couple tries. So, all right, so then this is the very first time this isn't checked, mostly because GitLab doesn't see there are 2 different repositories. One is your local one, and the other one is on GitLab. And at first it doesn't know one from the other, even though they have very similar names. So we want to kind of finish that. And then hopefully if that's done, local modifications, blah, blah, blah. Every now and then you're going to kind of work that. Like if we review it, then we can see all these here. And so what do we do about it? Well, it wants to, in this particular case, this shouldn't happen for you. This is happening for me because I already, I'm doing stuff here that I'd already done there. So what I can actually do is I can revert my modifications. And then it says commit head doesn't exist. All right, so instead of that, what I will do is I will simply commit what I have. And something like that. And so now I'm more or less there. And then when I'm done with stuff, I can then push it. Again, once I've entered this, it's already a configured Git repository location, and I can go next. And now it says that there's a conflict. And so what it will unmerged. Okay, open output. So naturally, when I'm trying to show you what's how to do it, it will, well, you shouldn't have any of these problems. I'm having these because I've done one thing locally and I've done the same thing remotely. And let's see here. So if I do a fetch instead, come on. If somehow I have trouble clicking that sometimes, and then, okay, so it has all of that. See, sometimes if I look at branch tag, let's see, man. Okay, let's switch to that. And it says branch name is not allowed. Okay. Okay, so now a merge commit, blah, blah, blah. Now let's try merging. Unresolved conflicts. Let's resolve the conflicts. And so yeah, now if this comes up for you, what we have, okay, what do you have here? It's like they're both exactly the same. So let's try accepting both of them and see what happens. And let's say okay. All right. And what is its complaint? Oh, I shouldn't have accepted both of them. All right, so now if this happens, yeah, see, we can just see what the problem was. I've kind of duplicated, since I accepted both of them, and this is something new, I can just sort of undo that. And now I'm back to being okay. All right, and it claims modifications, but there really aren't any. Let's see, what are some of its other complaints? Again, we can. If I try to pull again, it will bring up the same thing. And now what I can, okay. All right, so the alternative is or actually, since I've already fetched it, I can just do a checkout. Let's check out revision. And let's select that. Let's try selecting the remote. Back to that. This must be So I think we're a bunch. So let's try rebasing instead. And then reverting. All right, so now we have no changes. And if we try to, let's try to pull again. Because the reason we need to kind of fuss about this is because we need to, if I want to push, then I need to make sure that I'm in complete coherence with what the remote is. Okay, so now after an embarrassing number of struggles, I am now, in fact, you can sort of see this, that here's on the console, they list what I'm happening here. So I'm pushing it, branch update, master, blah, 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 and all finished. Okay, so there are comments in the chat. Mine isn't showing any remote branches to select. Question about the NetBeans version. NetBeans version should be okay. I'm using 12.12. We originally did 12.1, 12.3 just came out. Any version 12 should be fine. Okay, so if you're not showing any remote branches to select, then that means you hadn't, had you set up your Git lab already?
I think I just figured it out. I think I had to, I went in and did a commit first before then doing the remote, and then it worked.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, a good point, because then if you didn't have anything to commit, then there wasn't anything to kind of do. So okay, so I'm going to shut up now, and in fact, I'm going to